Atlantic Division shakeup. Oh, what a difference a year makes. On this day last year, the Bruins were not only tops of the division, they were number one in the East. Now they're just clinging to a playoff spot. As for the Leafs, they lead the Atlantic. And how about the Habs and the Sens, Craig Button? Both are within a win of a playoff spot right now. All right, Craig, Habs or the Sens? Who's got a better shot of reaching the postseason this year?
Gino, you look at both those teams, and the Senators have their ups and they have their downs, they have their ins, they have their outs. The way Montreal is playing at this present time, they're on a real heater. And if they can continue on that heater, getting the power play as productive as it has been with Line, really good, solid defensive play throughout their lineup, and they're carrying play for the first time in a long time. So, based on what I would say a little bit larger sample size of 15 games or so, I'm going with the Habs. And the Senators, certainly you would think, should have an advantage. Linus Allmark being out doesn't help them. The lack of goal scoring doesn't help them. And I think that the Montreal Canadiens just kind of, they have that feel. They have that je ne sais quoi, shall we say, that leads me to say the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, and you know what? This isn't, to your point, not just a blip. Since December 1st, Montreal's got the second best points per game in the East.
Yeah.
The Sens are fourth, and the Leafs are fifth. That's a 6-week stretch of playing better hockey than those who lead the Atlantic Division. So here's the question, Craig. Does Kent Hughes then owe it to this group to add between now and the deadline? And if so, where should he be looking to add?
Yes, yes, and yes. And that's in response to your first question. And that's emphatic. And we've gone through this. I've gone through this a number of times. Oh, no, they're in a rebuild. They're in a rebuild. Listen, being in a rebuild and being a buyer up to the deadline are not mutually exclusive. Part of the rebuild is helping your players understand what it takes to have success. Marty St. Louis, the head coach, has continuously talked along those lines. And now we're seeing the results of that process. So to just continue to say, oh, no, 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 we can't buy. No, your young players, the players that have been part of this for a longer period of time, they want to be able to have a taste of success. And if it means the playoffs, that's great. I'm not saying sell it out. I am saying that if you can strategically add to your team, that would be a real positive step for this group. And yes, I think that Kent Hughes should do that. And where I would be looking to add is in that middle group of forwards, trying to add some experience. I'd mentioned Yanni Gord, Ryan O'Reilly, those types of players that have won. And I think that type of winning experience, those types of players that could come in and help this young group of players and compete. You don't have to sell the farm. And at the same time, let's keep this in mind. Everybody, oh, draft picks, draft picks, draft picks, draft picks. All these draft picks, all these prospects are not going to play for the Montreal Canadiens. Right. So the saying, strike while the iron's hot, has to be in place for Kent Hughes. And the iron is hot.
I love it. Sens fans got to be wondering, what about us? Their defense is really tightened up this year. A big part of that, of course, Linus Ullmark, while he was healthy. They went from 28th in the league in D last year to 12th this year. That's an amazing jump. But their offense still needs a boost, Craig. If Steve Staios can find a way to bring in some offense between now and the deadline, what's that do to their playoff chances?
I think it improves their chances immensely. And you watch the LA Kings. The LA Kings just gave up 4 goals in 3 road games and lost 2 of the games. Why? Because they didn't have enough offensive pop. And when you go back to the LA Kings winning the Cup in 2012 and winning it in 2014, what did they do? They added Jeff Carter in 2012, the offensive pop. They added Marian Gaborik in 2014, offensive pop. And that's exactly the template that I believe Steve Staios should be looking at. They need offensive pop. And even with the absence of Linus Ullmark, the goaltending, the defensive play hasn't really suffered. What suffered was the offense. And that needs to be improved, because as the games get tighter and the competition becomes a little bit stronger, you need that little bit of an edge on the goal scoring department. So absolutely, that's where Steve Staios should be looking to add some more offensive weapons or weapon to their team.
What a difference in the last 12 months. Last year, the Leafs were the only Canadian team to make the playoffs in the East. The Habs and the Sens finished near the basement of the conference. Now it's mid-January. The Leafs are first, and we're talking about the chances of the Habs and Sens both possibly making the playoffs as well. Who would have seen this coming?